I'm Jasmine Moradi, and you're listening to the Queens of Tech podcast, a podcast series about raising the voice of workplace champions. 60 plus questions in around 30 to 40 minutes with women of color, non-binary, and transgender influencers about their journey into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I started the Queens of Tech podcast initiative in May 2022 because I would like to retain more women of color, non-binary, and transgenders in the tech industry. Talent is out there, but our work environment needs to improve for all to feel safer, stay authentic, and to be valued for our contributions. My vision is to raise the workplace ecosystem for all in tech by killing the imposter syndrome, stopping bad behavior, and increasing equity opportunities. Each podcast talk is built around 60 plus questions regarding upbringing, education, career path, DIB, and future advice. My mission is to bridge the gap between schools and workplaces by getting into the heart of my guest's personal life and career journey to inspire other girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders to unleash their full potential to reach top leadership roles in the tech industry. My goal is to raise the voices of tech champions around the world and together with companies, investors, and politicians, raise the challenges and opportunities around equity, inclusive, diversity, and belonging in our workplaces. Enough is enough. I would like to enforce companies to build a sustainable, inclusive culture to retain diverse talent so we keep the workforce power equity to continue building future diverse and inclusive products. Representation matters. Your voice matters. In this episode, I'm very excited to welcome my guest, tech queen Arezou Zarafshan, founder and CEO of Call Emmy. Salam, Arezou.
Salam, hi. Nice to be here.
I'm very happy to have you joining us. How are you?
I'm good, very good. How are you?
I'm also great. So lovely to have another Iranian on my podcast.
Glad to be here.
Now, let us dive into your journey into STEM. Hope you're ready for the Queens of Tech 60 plus questions.
Let's go.
Let's warm up with a few fun facts about you. How would you describe your personality in 3 hashtags?
Determined, direct, and kind.
How would you describe your life in 3 sentences or hashtags?
Busy, beautiful, focused.
What kind of music stimulates and motivates you the most?
I have a very wide range. It depends on my mood. 2 bands really I love, and when I need to get focused, I listen to these 2 bands. One is Pet Shop Boys. The other one is Depeche Mode.
And what is your personal motto?
If not now, then when?
What is your favorite book?
There's a book called This I Believe, which is a collection of essays. It's actually put out by NPR. And these essays are all 200 words long. So the person that wrote them has to fit what they believe in 200 words. And I love that book.
What is your favorite podcast?
The Hidden Brain by Shankar Vedantam.
Mac or PC?
Mac all the way.
There's something interesting about you that most people don't know.
I did ballroom dancing at some point in my life.
What is your hidden talent?
Find the 25th hour in a 24-hour period.
If you were going to write a book about your life, what would the title be?
Don't let fear be your guide.
Great start, Arezou. Now, let us dig deeper. Our childhood has an effect on our adulthood. Our early experiences shape our belief about ourselves, others, and the world. Now, I want to discover your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Tehran, Iran.
What was your dream job as a child?
Really didn't have one. I was just open, soaking it all in. dancer, I suppose, I really love dancing. We are Iranians, right? It's in our blood. And I'm actually not a good dancer. I'm a terrible dancer.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Trigonometry.
What was your least favorite subject?
Gosh, social sciences.
What is your earliest memory of technology and the arrival of the internet?
The different things. Earliest memory of technology, microwave in Iran. This is back in the 80s, right? You weren't even born then, probably. It was quite a, novelty for someone to have a microwave. So that was pretty interesting. And then, years later, obviously, internet. My earliest understanding of internet or memory of internet was, at the time, the early inception of internet was called the Mosaic. And that was my first glimpse into the internet. And Mosaic allowed connecting to these electronic bulletin boards kind of thing. And then you could read the bulletin boards and read the messages. So, chat boards.
I'm sure the microwave belonged to your parents and your house.
Actually, it didn't. It belonged to one of our family friends, and it was actually an experience. So they invited us over so we could be a part of the whole unboxing and turning it on for the first time. And I remember, the person that was reading the instruction and translating it for us. I mean, this is so early that if you turned it on and the door was open, it still would work. And he was saying, under no circumstance, put your hand in the microwave as it's on, And then I asked him, I said, well, what would happen if I did that?
So then, which were the three first technology gadgets you owned yourself?
Walkman was my very first one. It belonged to my brother. And then when he moved out of Iran, I inherited the Walkman. Years later, my dad bought me a really, nice stereo system. So that was my second one. My third gadget was after I left Iran and came to the US and bought myself a Discman, which was the disc version of the Walkman.
Who was your female role model growing up and why?
I can't really say when I was growing up in Iran. I mean, I know you know this, Jasmine. I mean, life is all about survival, right? And given that, we were not good with what was going on in Iran and still are not with the government, etc. I can't really say that I had a female role model, but now that I'm older and I look back and think about who influenced my life as a female so much, it was my grandmother. And why was because she was just so fierce and so fearless, so capable and competent. My grandma had sixth grade education and she lived independently all her life. She became a very successful investor and businesswoman. And she was just not feared in a bad way, but she commanded respect. And I miss her every day. So she was very influential in my life.
Then how do you think where you grew up and the school you went to and the generation you come from influence your education and career choice?
In terms of education and career choice, I know you know this, Jasmine. As an Iranian woman, girl, at least the time that I was growing up, the question of what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up was never asked. It was a statement that was given to us that when you grow up, you become this. And for me, it was when you grow up, you will become a doctor. That was the directive. But I was really good at math and I really wanted to have something that was enriched with math. And so for that reason, kind of my parents settled for engineering. Now, being good at math and being a good engineer are two different things. So I became an engineer and I did fine in engineering, but I really didn't like it. And I was never a good engineer, ever. There were so many amazing engineers around me. I could never be as good as them. Didn't mean that I didn't love technology and I didn't love being inside technology, but I just didn't want to be a practicing engineer. So it was years later I was no longer a child, I was in my late 30s, that I decided to do a complete redesign of my career and really leave the engineering field, but focus on other elements in my career. Still very, math heavy, very data heavy, but not engineering.
Well, mine was dentist. That was fed to me every day because I was good at math and good at school. And because of Iranian, you become independent and make money. And for me, that was not my interest. So I actually removed the physics classes. So I would never be able to qualify. So now I'm going to read two quotes. First one, how does the universe expect me to choose a career path at 16? I can't even choose what I want for dinner. Second, Abraham Lincoln said, I quote, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So Arezou, I want to know the choices behind your career path. Where and what did you end up studying at university? You said engineering, but where?
I studied electrical engineering in the state of Washington. I went to a 4-year school. Again, you know this. We work hard, we persevere. And I did fine in the engineering school. I got hired by HP before I graduated from the university. So I actually finished my last year while I was working. And then HP, hugely engineering company. Again, I'm surrounded by engineers around me, and I'm thinking, guys, I need to get a master's to be as good as these folks. So, and HP would pay for the master's in engineering. So I went to graduate school and got a master's in engineering.
And what professional roles have you had before that led you to start your own company?
Oh, lots, lots. So at HP, again, it was all very, very technology centric, very engineering centric. For a little while, I was the designer engineer, and then I moved into management and I managed firmware development for inkjet printers and electronics development. Then I moved to a different company, Office Products, and I did development for Office Products across a really wide range and gamut. And that was when after that, I decided to completely change my focus and focus on data analytics. You said you were a researcher, so I did research a lot, consumer insights, innovation, customer experience, and customer analytics. So all of that stuff I did over the past 10, 12 years. And then, life had its own plans. I lost several jobs. They were all due to a layoff, but finally, after the last one, at least the company said that it was due to COVID. I don't think that that was the reason. After the last layoff, I decided I'm going to do this thing that just wouldn't leave me alone. This idea that just wouldn't leave me alone had not left me alone for years. And I finally decided to do it.
Amazing. So what does Call Emmy do?
Call Emmy is a care connecting platform that parents trust. So we're not a care provider. We connect busy families with the help they need on their own terms, meaning on demand, when they need it, where they need it. And the most important thing is that they can trust it. That's the main difference that we have with our competitors.
What is your title and what is your main responsibility?
I'm the founder and CEO of Call Emmy, and my responsibilities vary from, oh my gosh, everything. I mean, everything is my responsibility of the company, right? I mean, we have a small team, we have 5 people, but the company is not grown enough for things to fall through the cracks, for things that don't really fit nicely within someone's job description. I come in. And as an early startup, as you're trying to figure out what it is that you do and how you do it, most everything is new, right? There is no standard operating procedure that has been written for this. It's not someone's job, but you discover stuff and then you figure out what to do. So I do everything. I'm the janitor, I'm the CEO, COO, the board member, the CMO, everything. I cover the gamut.
And what was the reason behind starting exactly this type of company in this industry?
The genesis of it was my own life. I had big jobs in the last few years of my career, big budgets, big responsibilities. And then when I became a mom, I quickly realized that I needed help. To get that help was extremely difficult. I hired and fired 12 people that I can remember spent thousands of dollars on background checks and subscription fees and hundreds of hours that I didn't have on candidate profiles and scheduling interviews and evaluating candidates, etc. And out of all of that, I got a very special person, and her name is Emmy. And Emmy made everything work. And it was wonderful. She was wonderful. She was just a linchpin for my life, and everything worked. And then after Emmy moved on, I had to make a decision whether I wanted to go back through that whole excruciating process and try to find someone again, or do I want to solve the problem? And I decided to solve the problem.
Wow, what a beautiful story. What does a typical workday or work week look like for you?
Usually it's about, 14 hours a day. And it starts with getting my son ready for school and take him to school. And, it's very important to me to be present for my son and equip him, enable him to have memories for later down the road when he grows up to refer to, and some grounding principles that will ground him. I mean, life is hard. You know it. I know it. And I am of the belief that what shapes anyone's life the most are those grounding principles that they were able to establish when they were growing up as a child. And so that's what I'm trying to do with my son. That's the big part of every day. But then in between time with my son, my family is just a lot of work, a lot of meetings. These days we're pivoting the company. So a lot of intricate steps to maintain what's there and then pivot and still make the payroll and pay people, all of that. So a lot of mental load. Yeah, 14 hours a day, minimum.
I do love the quote, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. So, Arezou, what isn't about your role that you love so much?
There's no one thing that I love. There's just a lot of stuff that I love. But if I were to say the one thing is the impact that we have on people, both on bookers as well as on the service providers, especially the service providers. We lovingly call them fairies. And our service providers come from all walks of life. They are retired teachers. They are current teachers, single moms. And time again, we hear from them how it helps them live a good life, live life on their terms. I was talking to one of our service providers the other day, and she said that 2 years ago, she got laid off and then she found us. And being on our platform has allowed her 2 dedicated years with her son. We have retired teachers that were able to save up enough to go on vacation. We have one single mom who was able to save up enough to get a new car. So really having that impact, seeing that impact and hearing about it from our service providers really makes it very worthwhile.
Well, it does affect me too. I get really happy to hear that people helping people.
Yeah.
And what do you wish everybody understood about your role?
That it's not glamorous. That is really, really hard. That's what I want people to understand, that being a CEO, being a head of a company, especially the company that you created, is hard work. Success doesn't come overnight. People look at the shiny object and think, oh, she's so lucky and she's done this. They don't see the sleepless nights. They don't see the nervous breakdowns. They don't see what goes into building a business. It's not glamorous. It's not for the faint of heart.
What is the one common myth about your professional field that you want to disapprove?
Success is not an overnight journey. People look at the Mark Zuckerbergs, Bill Gates, and they think that, oh, these guys, they only did this. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. They don't know that Sarah Blakely actually drove around a truck full of, Spanx underwear and went to Nordstrom and sold that. So it requires hard work. It requires a lot of perseverance and determination. The other thing that I want to say, though, and I had to talk about this, a few years ago, when you tell people that this is my company, this is what I do, and the first thing I hear is, what a great idea. And yes, the idea is great. The idea is probably 1%. 1% of this whole equation. 99% of it is what you do with that idea and how you execute. And so the myth to me is about validity of the idea. Idea means shit. It's about what you make from that idea and how you execute.
So, what is it that you love about working in the tech industry beyond the hard work behind it?
The newness of it, the endlessness of it. You never get to the end. There's always something new to learn and discover and figure out. I mean, now it's all about AI and quantum computing. I'm just listening to the radio this morning as Colorado was making a big bet in investing in quantum computing. And I was thinking, oh, that's fun. It just that whole sense of that blank canvas that you constantly have to learn more and figure things out. That's what I love about technology. I love, love, love.
An Oprah Winfrey said, I quote, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is not a stepping stone to greatness. Arezou, what has by far been your biggest achievement in your career? Is it Call Emmy?
Yeah, for sure.
And what's the biggest factor that's helped you become successful then? Any success habits?
I think perseverance and just determination. Just get it done, focus, be nimble, be objective, focus, focus, focus.
How do you then measure your own performance then?
That's a good question. First of all, year over year, I make a habit out of looking numbers this year versus last year, same quarter this year. But personally, how I measure success is I'm still in the game despite all odds and just as committed as before. Do I have days that are hard and I think, oh God, what did I get myself into? And blah, blah. Yes, I do. For me, success is not a destination. I really believe it. Success is a journey. Success is a choice of your attitude and your result. And I made that choice.
With success comes failure. So, what is your biggest failure in your career and what did you learn from it?
I will say that the biggest failure in my corporate career, especially as I kept going higher in the food chain, that I chose not to play the game. And that cost me a lot. It cost the influence, job, income, promotion. I chose not to play the game. And ultimately, that pushed me out of a very, very lucrative corporate career. That said, that's me. So I had to make a choice. Now that I look back, do I choose my values or do I choose a facade? And I chose my values and I paid the price. And so what did I learn from it? I think I learned about myself. I'm extremely value centric and I'm unwilling to compromise on my values and I'm willing to pay the price. And it's hard.
So, what is inspiring and motivating you the most in your role and career right now then?
That I have the power to make a difference the way I see matters, the way that's aligned with my values. And I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have to be second guessed. I don't have to justify why I think it's the right thing to do to give someone a refund, why it's the right thing to pay someone, even though we may not have gotten paid for the job, but it's still the right things to pay. Doing the right thing, treating people the way I want to be treated, the way they deserve to be treated as human beings. That's what motivates me. And that's what propels me forward, that I have this responsibility and I can make a little difference every day.
Let us now jump into influence of mentors, role models, champions, and sponsors. Role models can consciously or subconsciously be a powerful force in our lives. In addition, champions can stand up and advocate for us and open up the world of possibilities. Sponsors match emerging talent with leaders and influential employees who can help us move ahead in our careers. Arezou, do you have a mentor, champion, or sponsor today?
I have all of them. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. A few of them are from my corporate life that have been mentors, have been champions, sponsors. I remember I lived in Southeast Asia for a little while and it was an expatriate assignment that I signed up for. But the person that opened that up for me pushed me in that direction. He's still a champion and a sponsor. Today and I'm going to name her because it's going to go out publicly and I want her to be recognized. There's a woman on my board. Her name is Natalie Levy, and she's the founder of an investment group. The investment group is called She's Independent, and they're a woman forward investment group. So they invest in the women primarily. And she's on my board. She has made so many amazing connections for me, pushed me in directions that I hadn't thought of, challenged me in ways that I need to be challenged, which is another big responsibility of a mentor, is to challenge your thinking. So really believe in all three.
And history showed it has been more common for men having mentors, champions, and sponsor in business than women. So, Arezou, how important do you think is to have a mentor, champion, and sponsor during one's career?
Hugely important. Not being a man, I can't say how men go and find their mentors and champions, but what I can say is that us women, we don't ask enough, and we should. The other thing is that we need to understand that the responsibility is on us to ask. When I get a mentor or when I go talk to my mentor, I have a list of things I want to talk about. These are the things that I need help with. And I learned this. I don't show up saying, okay, I'm here now, mentor me, right? I say, I need connection here. I need your opinion about this. I'm struggling with this. So I think women need to ask more to be mentored and to be sponsored. And then secondly, we need to be more specific about where we need help.
And we need to actually support each other.
Amen. Amen.
Let us now move on to leadership. Adina Friedman, President and CEO of NASDAQ, said, I quote, empower those around you to be heard and valued makes a difference between a leader who simply instructs and one who inspires. And Shirley Sandberg, ex-COO of Facebook, said, I quote, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. So, Arezou, what does leadership mean to you?
Cheryl's definition definitely is what I resonate with. For me, leadership is about a cause that motivates others, and for those people to tap into their own resources and find that hidden potential to follow the cause. Whether the cause is we need to deliver this project or the cause is we need to serve humanity. It can be very big or very small. But the leadership trait of helping these folks understand, believe, and support the cause.
So what do you consider a good versus a bad leader?
A leader is a leader. I don't really think that there's a good leader or there's a bad leader. There's a good cause and there's a bad cause. Hitler was an amazing leader, horrific cause. I think that, leadership is leadership. What kind of a human are you really determines whether your cause is worthy to follow or your cause is self-serving and path to destruction. And this is interesting because it ties back to the corporate journey, right? What is this cause, right? Is this about doing good for the world, for the community, for the environment? Or is this a self-serving cause that helps a handful of people?
And who is your favorite female, non-binary, or transgender tech leader you look up to and why?
I like Mary Barra a lot. I look up to her because she is very atypical, right? She became the CEO of this gigantic car enterprise in her 50s. And she started at very low level in her career. I think she was an admin, if I'm not mistaken. And, her perseverance really, really inspires me. And talk about car industry, right? Automotive industry, talk about male dominated in the Midwest. And despite all of that, she persevered and she's a very respected leader. The other person, although I wouldn't say that she's technology leader, but she's definitely a leader, is the former CEO of PepsiCo, Indira Nooyi. And I love her because she led on her own terms and she didn't play the game in the corporate world. She changed the game. And I really, really respect her for that. She placed very, very clear boundaries and she stuck with them. And I think that that's something for all of us women to learn. In her case, like she gives stories like when she became a VP of finance at PepsiCo, She had two young girls, and a part of her agreement was that her girls could come to the office during certain hours and would just hang out with her in her office. And that was her requirement, or working from home, or hours, etc. And interesting enough, she had the same boundaries with her family.
And how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I am told that I am a strong leader, that I trust people. I trust their ability and their intention. And I set the objective and I get out of their way. Given, where I come from, my upbringing, my background, etc., I am told that I give a lot of tough love. And I think that that's actually a very kind thing to do, is to tell people what they need to hear or what they don't want to hear, but they need to hear. I want to give an example of this because this is something that I go back to a lot. No one likes to lay people off, right? And me as a leader, I've had that experience more times than I want to remember. But one exception, the rest of them, every single one was difficult, but yet understanding and civil experience. And the last person that I laid off in my corporate world, he actually thanked me for being honest and for being authentic and telling him the truth. And the truth, again, going back to not playing the game. At that time, the truth was, dude, this sucks. I have no good way of telling you that you're losing your job, but you're losing your job. Do I like it? Do I think, you deserve to? No, not at all. Are my hands tied? Yes, they are. I have to do this because I'm told I need to lay people off. And I selected you. I'm sorry. And, in corporate world, they tell you, don't apologize. Don't personalize, da, 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 da. I don't know. I think being a good leader, again, talking about the cause being a good one so that people want to follow you, all goes back to authenticity and truth.
That was going to be my question. So, as a leader, what values are the most important to you?
Authenticity, truth, and trust.
And what leadership lessons have you learned that formed you into the leader you are today?
When I first became a people manager years ago, I was in my 20s and I wanted to be really helpful to my team. So I would visit with them all the time. I'd ask them what they were doing and I'd give them suggestions and I would tell them what I thought. And so as a result, they thought I didn't trust them. My intention was to be helpful. But number one, they didn't ask for my help. And number two, I was no longer their friend. Right? I was not their pal anymore. So when it came to performance evaluation and my manager was giving me like, girl, your team isn't all that happy about you because they feel like you're micromanaging them, you don't trust them. And that was a big whack on the side of my head that what I really intended had the adverse effects. And so that was my big learning on trust. So I let go. And when they came to me to tell me what they were doing, because they felt that they were conditioned to tell me what they were doing, because I kept asking before. I remember the first time that this happened, they came to me to tell me what they were doing. And I asked them, so how can I help you? How can I be helpful to you? And the shock and awe in their face that I'm not offering suggestions. I'm asking them, how can I help you? That was defining for me.
What are your 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses?
Focus, determination, and hopefulness, I guess, optimism. Weaknesses, I don't know if this is weaknesses, but I choose to trust and be disappointed rather than not give trust. Second is I get consumed by my work. And what is the third weakness? The third weakness, I say what I see.
I don't see that as weaknesses. Depends who you ask. Definitely.
That's true. That's true.
Corporate world, probably, yes. Let us now jump into the hottest topic in business today, workplace culture, unlocking the power of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Arezou, what does diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you personally?
Yeah. So we talked about this and thanks for sharing your perspective. Like a lot of things clicked when you said that DEI shouldn't be a program, shouldn't be a separate thing. It should be a fabric of a company and the culture. Now the question is, how do you create fabric? If it doesn't exist or if it's weak. And the way you create that fabric is by modeling good behavior, all the time. Nothing promotes diversity and inclusion better than the leaders modeling inclusivity.
And what do you consider being 3 to 5 signs of good company culture if you were to join a company again?
I put a lot of weight on subjective feelings, that what it feels like when you walk down the hallway. That in and of itself speaks very, very loudly. Just how people interact with one another. What do you hear? Is it dead quiet or is it vibrant, lively? And for me, one of the biggest signs of a healthy company culture is attendance. If it's an in-person or, in company culture where you have to go to the office, parking lot, how full is it at 8 a.m. when you go? And I've been a part of companies and it's nothing like it. That 8 a.m. you pull into the parking lot and you can't find a single parking spot because everybody is so excited to be there. Now it's different nowadays with the hybrid culture and remote culture. So I can't really answer that to you. What would it look like with a remote culture? I don't know. But I will tell you that it's a feeling that you get.
And as a woman, what has been the most significant political or cultural barrier in your career, and how have you overcome these challenges?
The most significant barrier that I faced was when I became a mom, honestly. There were just a lot of assumptions made as soon as I became a mom. And have I overcome it? No. I decided to solve the problem. Assignments are not given to moms because they believe that, the mom is burdened with care responsibilities, and they are burdened with care responsibilities. 70%, as Pew Research identifies. You're not invited to offsite meetings. You're not invited to corporate retreats, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the biggest impediment that I faced was when I became a mom.
And why do you think it's important for more women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender to join the tech industry today?
Because there is no balance. I mean, the balance isn't there, right? And when a system is imbalanced, it makes imbalanced decisions. And those decisions don't serve humanity. That's why it's so important for women, for people of color, non-binary genders to join the tech industry and bring in that balance, as hard as it is.
Do you and how do you speak with your colleagues and peers and community about DEIB challenges, for example, salary gaps, promotions, etc.?
I say the stats, this is pitiful that women in 2024 were making 82 cents on a dollar. Still, that has not moved for 20 years. This is pitiful. By the way, moms make 79 cents per dollar. So moms are actually in a worse situation. We celebrate, and I'm very vocal about this, with Fortune 500. We now have 10% women CEOs. So that's 500 companies, 10%. We've got 50 women CEOs. And then we celebrate that. Well, no, let's talk about the 450. We still are not representing, let's celebrate 50-50, right? Let's celebrate 250 women, not 50. So I cite the stats and I'm very, very vocal about this, that we need to work harder. This is not something to celebrate.
There are many public and internal discussions about the barriers women of color, non-binary, and transgenders face from reaching higher position in the tech industry and receiving funding. How do you feel is affecting you? You did mention a little bit about the funding challenges. And what is your advice then on how to best unlock these roadblocks?
I mean, the best advice when it comes to funding is just keep going, just keep going. It's not something that's going to be solved overnight. It requires tenacity. It requires hard work. It requires faith. So keep going when it comes to funding challenge. Yes, women get 2% of the venture capital funding, but then that's still 2%. Okay. It's not zero. So you can get there. You can get there. Keep going. And don't be discouraged that, this will never work. No, it will work. You just have to work hard at it. Relative to, promotion in the corporate world is I'm not the best person to give advice because I made a choice of stepping out. So you as a person, you have a choice to make is, again, do you choose your values or do you choose something else and be ready to pay the price? No judgment. If you choose your values, be ready to pay the price. If you choose that, you want to go for the security and the income and all of that, there's a price to be paid for that one too. So be deliberate about what choice you're going to make.
And then today, tech companies spend a lot of marketing money to attract women of color, non-binary, and transgenders. However, at the same time, they're fighting it hard to retain them. Articles show that women are leaving the tech industry. So what is your best advice on strategies for how companies can work to build a stronger corporate culture that engages DIB?
Don't make this a program, make this a behavior, make this a value. You don't have to work extra hard at being inclusive. You just have to be conscious about it. So make it a part of the DNA of your company rather than create an extra program with extra funding, extra stuff.
So what would you say are the few factors, challenges of implementing a DIB culture in a workplace today in the tech industry?
So it starts with the top. It starts with the leaders. And I think that the biggest challenge is that leaders taking the time to go and reflect and internalize how they can model inclusivity and diversity and inclusion. I personally don't like the word tolerance. You don't tolerate diversity. What in the world? You tolerate a bad thing, right? Diversity should be celebrated. And so how does that look like when you model it? And I think leaders have to reflect that. And then once they arrive at this is how they can model that behavior, then stick with it. It starts from the top.
And how do you think companies would benefit from having not just women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders, but actually higher gender representation at C-suite level and boardrooms with actual mandate?
Goes back to a balanced versus imbalanced system. This is in 2008, where we had the whole financial meltdown crash. Sally Krawcheck, she's a Wall Street executive, one of the few women. And she actually says that the reason that the whole meltdown happened was because of lack of diversity in the boardroom and the C-suite, because people in those positions were surrounded by people like them. They heard what they wanted to hear and did not hear what was happening on the ground. And so we have one instance of a complete economic meltdown because of lack of diversity. That's why we need balance in the C-suite and in the boardroom and everywhere else. Now, does balance mean 50-50? Well, ideally, yes, it does mean 50-50. But you know what? 40-60 is not bad. Let's try to get to 40-60, not where we are today, 10%. We're nowhere near balance.
And what would you say is the biggest reason behind that we don't have more women of color, and non-binary and transgender leaders in the tech leadership roles and as startup founders still today?
Let's take the startup founders on one side and then talk about the Fortune 500 enterprise. And the Fortune 500 enterprise, it's because, again, the balance does not exist at the top. And generally speaking, people like to be surrounded by people like them, right? So there is no deliberate effort. There needs to be more of a deliberate effort to look for a diverse candidate and make sure that the talent pipeline is diverse. The succession planning pipeline is diverse. That needs to be a concerted effort. On the startup founding side, actually, we do have almost 50-50, 46% of startup founders are women, but they don't survive. Why? Because they get 2% of funding. So that in and of itself needs to be solved as well. I hope it gets solved in my lifetime. I'm not holding up for that. I don't think that 2% is going to be 50% in my lifetime. But again, maybe we can get closer.
And what factors do you believe contribute to this imbalance? And what strategies can be activated to increase the funding for women-led startups?
So in terms of what contributed to it, it's the same thing that has contributed to the Fortune 500 corporate enterprise. It's just people want to be surrounded by people like themselves. There are examples, and I've been told, like you have to be a white man. I mean, this is funny, actually, I'm in my 50s, right? And there are actually venture capital companies in Silicon Valley that come out and say that we want you to be in your 20s to get funding. You can actually research it and find it yourself. So what has contributed to that is the same thing that has contributed. It's just that diversity hasn't existed and there hasn't been a concerted effort at the top to make sure that that gets addressed. So a lot of investors are now, men and women actually, are now waking up to making a decision to invest in a company or not invest in a company might look like an objective decision, but in actuality, it's a very subjective decision. And it starts with, the profile of the founder. Is the founder, in their 20s? Is the founder a Stanford graduate? Is the founder, et cetera, et cetera. And so that gets you in, and then the numbers and everything else come in. What is missing from this is the demographic profile of the founder. Meaning, like if you look at the women demographic and their success rate, their default rate, right? You actually find pretty impressive stats that women are actually a safer bet than men are. And data very well supports that. But that's not what gets looked at, right? Because I'm looking at this one particular Stanford graduate that fits the mold that I like. And so the strategies that, in my belief, need to be activated is let's look at the founder demographic and evaluate the founder against that demographic. And there are a lot of companies, there are a lot of investment companies that are starting to wake up to that and bringing that into their decision. I just met with one last week, which I'm so excited about.
How much do you think the tech industry has changed regarding this subject since you joined?
Sad to say, not a lot.
And looking back on your career, what one thing would you have changed in your working environment to break the bias?
I spoke up. I put all of my cards on the table. I opened the kimono. There was nothing I held back. I did not, put on a facade to fit in. So I don't think I could have done anything differently. I could have, again, chosen to play the game, which I chose not to. I did everything I could.
And looking forward, what will you do as a leader beyond being the CEO of Call Emmy to improve the bias to the next generation of women of color, non-binary, and transgenders in tech?
Try to help people to speak their truth and not be afraid. Because change will not happen if we just keep playing the game. And, at some point, the scale is going to tip. I would continue to mentor and coach young women to speak their truth and stand up for what they believe in and let the chips fall where they may, and they'll figure it out. Let fear not be your guiding principle.
Let us move on to another hot topic in business today, which is work-life balance and mental health. Arezou, you have without a doubt a busy lifestyle. You told us you have your son, your family, 14 hours a day. So how do you take care of yourself to maintain good mental health?
I do what I need, meaning that there are times like yesterday, I came home after we had the whole busyness and you were kind enough to say we can reschedule the podcast. I just went to bed. I slept for 2.5 hours. I was tired. I do what I need. There are times that I need help from friends. I need to be surrounded with friends, call them, and we schedule some time and I get what I need. It's very important to me. And, day to day, it's different.
Have you ever experienced burnout?
All the time, yes. But I recognize it. And then I take time off. I tell myself that I'm burning out and I need to take the day off and I need to go slow. I need to just be in my jammies all day today. I tell my family, don't expect much from me today. I'm taking care of me.
And what is advice on how companies can create a more mentally healthy workplace in the new now?
I think that structurally, every company should enable employees to take mental days off, whatever that looks like, right? Just allow the employees to take care of themselves and call it mental health day off. Every company should structurally do that. But again, that's structural. More of the organic way should be built into company culture. Number one, there should not be a company culture that detrimentally affects the mental health of the employees, but also it should be a part of the DNA where people are celebrated, that people are energized, because they come to the work and they do the work and not drained.
And what motivates you every day to get out of bed?
My son, without a doubt.
Now, wrap up with a few words of wisdom and a piece of advice for our listeners. Arezou, what is the best piece of advice you've been given that has helped you during setbacks in your role and career?
Keep going.
And then what is the worst advice you've ever been given and how did you tackle it?
Goes back to our childhood, which is do what people expect you to do, what other people expect. Like be successful according to the definition of others. That's the worst advice.
And is there something you wish you would have known or skill you wish you had when starting out in the tech industry?
When I started out, I wish that I had more courage to ask questions. That didn't come to me naturally. And I would have enjoyed it more if I had asked more questions. I was afraid of asking questions.
And if you had the ability to go back in time to when you were just at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Ask more questions. I was very curious, but I was afraid of asking questions in order to not look a certain way, in order to fit in. And I wish that I had gotten over that sooner. It took me about 10 years to get over that.
And what advice will you give to young girls, women of color, non-binary and transgenders who want and trying to break into STEM fields today, especially wanting to become next generation leaders?
I would say go for it. It's okay to feel stupid. It's okay to feel embarrassed and vulnerable. Allow yourself to feel all of that and still go for it.
Last but not least, Arezou, what is next for you in your role and career in tech? What are your career aspirations?
Well, right now we have a company to grow, and that's all I'm focused on. And what happens beyond the company, beyond that, after we exit, I don't know. Not focused on that. Something good.
I am sure, and I'm excited to follow that. Thank you very much for being a guest on the Queens of Tech podcast, sharing your journey will without a doubt inspire change and reshape company culture for the next generation of women of color, non-binary and transgender leaders in tech.
Thank you for having me. This was really awesome.
Thank you for listening. If you have worked in the tech industry a minimum 3 years and would like to share your journey, please nominate yourself or somebody you know to I@jasminemoradi.com. For more podcast episodes and to learn more about the Queens of Tech initiative and to support us, visit queensoftech.com.